The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly around the human warship Thunderbolt. Its special coating made it almost impossible to see against the black backdrop filled with distant stars. Only the most advanced scanners could detect its presence, and that was exactly how Captain Juwan Park wanted it. Juwan stood tall on the bridge, her dark uniform crisp despite the long hours of her shift. The blue light from the ship's many screens cast shadows across her face, highlighting the small scar above her right eyebrow, a reminder of her first battle as a young officer. Her short black hair was peppered with gray, each strand earned through years of difficult decisions. "Anything yet?" she asked, turning to face her communications officer. Lieutenant Taehyun Kim's fingers moved quickly across his control panel, adjusting frequencies and signal strengths. After a moment, he looked up and shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. The Azurans are blocking everything. Our colony on Proxima Centauri IV has been silent for 3 full cycles now." Juwan crossed her arms and stared at the main view screen. The distant star system where thousands of human colonists lived, or had lived, glowed faintly ahead. A muscle in her jaw twitched as she clenched her teeth. "Show me the last transmission again," she ordered. The screen flickered, and the face of Governor Han appeared. Static cut through his message, but the fear in his eyes was clear. "Large fleet approaching. Weapons hot. Council won't respond to. Need immediate." The message dissolved into noise before cutting out completely. Juwan had watched it 20 times already. Each viewing only strengthened her resolve. "The Council has made their position clear," she said to her bridge crew. "They believe we're overreacting." Her second-in-command, Commander Do-Yeon Choi, stepped forward. "The Azurians have been planning this for years. We showed the Council the evidence, the weapons stockpiles, the training facilities, everything. And they told us we were too young a species to understand galactic politics." Juwan finished for him. "That we should leave diplomacy to the older races who've been doing it for thousands of years." The bridge fell silent. Everyone present knew what was at stake. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 2 centuries ago, considered mere children by species who measured their civilizations in millennia. Despite humanity's rapid advancement, the Council treated them as lesser members, their concerns dismissed with patronizing reassurances. Lieutenant Min Yoon, the ship's tactical officer, cleared her throat. "Captain, sensors indicate the colony's defense grid is offline. If there are survivors, they won't last long." Juwan finished. She straightened her uniform and made her decision. "Navigation. Plot jump coordinates to Proxima Centauri IV. Tactical. Run a full systems check on all weapons. I want everything ready the moment we arrive." Commander Choi stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Captain, the Council specifically ordered all military vessels to stay out of disputed territories. If we jump into that system—" "I know what I'm doing, Commander." Juwan's voice was steel. "Earth has tried playing by their rules. We've filed reports, submitted evidence, requested peacekeeping forces, and while we followed protocol, our colonies started vanishing." She turned to address the entire bridge crew. The Thunderbolt was built for this moment. When diplomacy fails, when warnings are ignored, when our people are in danger, we act. The crew straightened in their seats. They all understood the weight of what they were about to do. The Thunderbolt wasn't just any warship. It was humanity's most advanced vessel, incorporating technologies Earth had carefully kept hidden from the Council. What appeared to be a standard heavy cruiser contained systems that would shock even the most advanced Council races. "Jump drives charging," announced the navigation officer. "Ready in 60 seconds." Juwan walked to the center of the bridge and placed her hand on the captain's console. "The Council thinks we're an impulsive, aggressive species because of our history. They don't understand that our history is precisely why we recognize threats they choose to ignore." The bridge hummed with energy as the massive jump drives powered up. Outside, space began to warp around the ship's hull. "Jump in 10 seconds, called the navigation officer. Juwan took a deep breath. Humanity tried to warn them. Now they'll understand why Earth doesn't make empty threats. 5 seconds. She thought of the thousands of colonists who might already be dead, of the council members who had laughed behind their hands at humanity's concerns, of the Azurans who believed they could attack human worlds without consequences. Jump initiated. Space folded around the Thunderbolt, compressing into a bright point of light. For a fraction of a second, the ship existed in multiple dimensions at once, then shot forward faster than light itself. Taking us to battle stations, Juan announced calmly. Shields up the moment we exit jump space. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They had trained for this moment, hoping it would never come. Commander Choi stepped to Juwan's side. The Azurians will have a fleet. We're just one ship. Juwan's lips curved in a slight smile. One ship is all Earth needs to send a message. And what message is that, Captain? Juwan's eyes reflected the swirling energies of jump space as they neared their destination. That the galaxy ignored our warnings at their peril. The ship shuddered as it approached the jump exit point. In seconds, they would arrive at Proxima Centauri IV, likely facing an Azurian war fleet, one human warship against unknown numbers. Prepare for exit from jump space, called the navigation officer. 3, 2, on. The Thunderbolt burst back into normal space, its sensors immediately scanning the system. The main view screen filled with the sight of Proxima Centauri IV and the massive Azurian fleet surrounding it. 27 warships detected, Lieutenant Yoon reported, her voice steady despite the odds. They're deploying in attack formation. Juwan stood tall, her decision made. Send one message on all frequencies. Lieutenant Kim. Text only. Ready, Captain. Juwan's voice was calm but carried to every corner of the bridge. Send this. Azurian fleet. This is Captain Juwan Park of the Earth Defense Force warship Thunderbolt. You were warned. You will now face the consequences. As the message transmitted, Juwan gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. Deploy all Orion systems. Show them what humanity is truly capable of. The Azurian command ship, Eternal Dominion, hung in space like a massive black knife. Its sharp, angular design blocked out the light from Proxima Centauri, casting a long shadow over the human colony below. 26 smaller warships surrounded it, their weapons glowing with energy as they fired upon the orbital defenses protecting the human settlement. Supreme Commander Vor stood on the raised platform at the center of his command bridge. His tall, slender body was covered in dark blue scales that shimmered under the ship's lights. The crest of bone that rose from his head marked him as a high-ranking member of the Azurian military caste. He watched the battle with 6 yellow eyes, each capable of focusing independently on different tactical displays. Another defense satellite destroyed, reported a weapons officer. The orbital shield grid is at 23% capacity and failing. Vor made a pleased clicking sound with his throat sac. Excellent. Once the shields fall, begin precision strikes on their major cities. I want their defense forces disabled, not destroyed. The Council expects us to capture this world intact. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krill, approached the command platform. Like all Azurians, he walked with a slight bobbing motion, his digitigrade legs giving him a bird-like gait. The humans fought well, Krill noted, for primitives. Vor's mouthparts shifted in what passed for an Azurian smile. Primitive indeed. Their technology is at least a century behind ours. The Council was right to dismiss their concerns. He gestured toward the main view screen, where the human colony's defenses were failing one by one. Small explosions blossomed in orbit as satellites and defensive platforms were systematically destroyed. Look at how easily we dismantled their best defenses, Vor continued. They are no threat to us or any advanced species, just another young race that reached the stars before they were truly ready. Around them, the bridge crew worked efficiently at their stations. Unlike humans, Azurians had evolved from pack predators, and their military operated with the precision of hunters who had worked together for centuries. Each officer knew their role without needing constant orders. The human governor is broadcasting distress signals again, reported the communications officer. Still attempting to reach their homeworld and the council. Continue jamming all frequencies, Vor ordered. By the time anyone responds, this colony will be firmly under Azurian control. The tactical display showed the battle progressing exactly as planned. The Azurian fleet had surrounded the colony world completely, methodically destroying its orbital infrastructure while preparing for the ground invasion. It was textbook military doctrine, taught at the War Academy on the Azurian homeworld. A junior officer hurried across the bridge, his movements betraying agitation. Unlike the older officers who maintained rigid control, younger Azurians sometimes showed emotion through their body language. He approached the command platform and waited for permission to speak. "What is it, Officer Leth?" Vor asked, his tone revealing slight annoyance at the interruption. "Supreme Commander," the young officer began, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Our long-range sensors have detected an anomalous energy signature at the edge of the system." Vor's crest flattened slightly in irritation. "Be specific, officer. What kind of energy signature?" "Unknown, sir. It appeared suddenly, like nothing in our database. It's..." The officer never finished his report. The main view screen automatically shifted to show a new threat, and the entire bridge fell silent. At the edge of the system, space itself appeared to tear open. A swirling vortex of energy formed, blue-white, and pulsing with power. From within this tear emerged a ship, a single human warship. As it fully materialized, the jump portal collapsed behind it. The vessel was larger than any human ship they had encountered before. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, with red markings along its sides. It moved with surprising speed for its size, accelerating directly toward the Azurian fleet. "Identification," Vor demanded, all 6 eyes now focused on the newcomer. "Earth Defense Force vessel Thunderbolt," the tactical officer reported after a moment. "Heavy cruiser class, but, sir, our sensors are having difficulty penetrating its hull. There's some kind of interference." Vor straightened to his full height. "A single ship, against our entire attack fleet." He made a harsh sound that passed for laughter among his kind. "The humans are even more foolish than I thought." "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "Text and visual, broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it on screen," Vor ordered, curious to see what the humans would say in the face of certain destruction. The main view screen split, half showing the approaching Thunderbolt, half showing the face of a human female. Her dark eyes held no fear, only determination. Her short black hair was streaked with gray, and her face showed the lines of age the humans developed so quickly compared to the longer-lived Azurians. "Azurian vessel, this is Captain Juan Park of the Earth Defense Force vessel Thunderbolt," she said, her voice calm and measured. "You are engaged in hostilities against a sovereign human colony. Cease all military operations immediately." Vor could not help himself. He laughed, a harsh, rasping sound that echoed across the bridge. Several of his officers joined in, their mandibles clicking rapidly in what humans might mistake for nervousness, but was actually amusement. "A single ship," Vor said, not bothering to hide his contempt. "The humans send a single ship against our armada. This is even more pathetic than the council suggested." The human captain's expression did not change. She simply stared at him through the screen, her eyes as hard as polished stone. "You were warned," she replied simply. Something in her tone, the absolute certainty in those 3 words, made Vor's inner eyelids flicker. For the first time, a small seed of doubt entered his mind. "Target that vessel," he ordered, pushing aside the moment of uncertainty. "All ships, concentrate fire. I want it destroyed immediately." The bridge erupted into activity as orders were relayed throughout the fleet. 27 warships turned their attention to the lone human vessel. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the human ship is deploying." Something. Vor turned to the tactical display and froze. Hundreds of small objects were launching from hidden compartments along the Thunderbolt's hull, spreading out in a complex formation. They moved too quickly for missiles, too erratically for drones, yet with obvious purpose. "What are those?" he demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human captain's voice came through the speakers once more. "Supreme Commander War," she said, somehow knowing his name, "I will give you one last chance to surrender. The Galactic Council ignored humanity's warnings about your species. We will not make the same mistake." Vor's crest flattened against his skull in anger. "Fire all weapons," he roared. "Destroy that ship now." As the order went out, Vor couldn't shake the feeling that he had gravely miscalculated. The Azurans had studied humanity for years, assessing their technology, their military capabilities, their weaknesses. Everything indicated they were an easily conquered species, technologically inferior despite their rapid advancement. But as he watched the Thunderbolt and its mysterious deployments, Supreme Commander Vor wondered if the true primitive in this encounter might be himself, for underestimating what humans were capable of when pushed too far. The 27 Azurian warships moved with practiced precision, spreading out to surround the lone human vessel. Their dark hulls reflected little light, making them look like moving shadows against the stars. To any observer, the outcome seemed certain. One ship, no matter how advanced, could not hope to defeat such overwhelming numbers. Inside the Thunderbolt, the bridge crew worked with focused intensity. Each person moved quickly but calmly, their hands flying over control panels as they prepared for the coming battle. Commander Chunabali stood at the tactical station, his eyes fixed on the display showing the enemy fleet. Red dots representing Azurian ships formed a closing circle around the single blue dot that was the Thunderbolt. "Captain," he reported, looking up at Juan Park, "they're moving to encircle us. Standard Azurian hunting formation. Their targeting systems are locked onto our position." Captain Park stood in the center of the bridge, her posture straight and confident despite the odds they faced. She watched the main screen with clear, steady eyes, showing no fear as the enemy warships grew larger in the display. "Time to impact of first enemy weapons," she asked. 30 seconds, Captain," Commander Lee replied. Juan nodded once. "Very well. Deploy Orion system." The bridge fell silent for a moment. Everyone knew what this meant. The Orion system was humanity's most closely guarded secret, technology developed over decades and hidden from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. Only 5 people in the room had ever seen it in action. The rest had only heard rumors. "Orion deployment authorized," Commander Lee confirmed, pressing his palm against a scanner. A hidden panel on his console slid open, revealing a red button protected by a clear cover. He flipped the cover and pressed the button. Throughout the massive ship, previously invisible seams appeared in the hull. Hundreds of small compartments opened, revealing sleek metallic objects roughly the size of small shuttles. They had no visible engines or weapons, just smooth, reflective surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. "Orion units launching," announced Lee. On the outside of the Thunderbolt, the small objects shot away from the ship with incredible speed. They moved in perfect coordination, spreading out to form an intricate, 3-dimensional web around the human vessel. Within seconds, hundreds of these autonomous drones created a defensive shell, constantly moving and adjusting their positions. The Azurian attack began without warning. Energy beams in various colors, blue, green, and purple, lanced out from multiple ships simultaneously. The barrage was designed to overwhelm any defense system, striking from all angles at once. It was a tactic that had defeated many advanced civilizations before. But something unexpected happened. The Orion drones moved with impossible speed, intercepting the incoming beams. When struck, each drone absorbed the energy, its surface glowing briefly before returning to normal. Those energy beams that managed to slip past the drones struck the Thunderbolt directly, only to splash harmlessly against an invisible barrier surrounding the ship. On the bridge, a soft hum was the only indication that the quantum shields were active. Another technology humanity had kept hidden from the Council. Shields holding at 97%, reported the engineering officer. No damage to any systems. Captain Park nodded, unsurprised. Status of the Orion network. All units functioning at optimal levels, Commander Lee replied. The Azurans appear confused. They're adjusting their attack pattern. Indeed, the enemy fleet was changing formation, trying different weapons and angles of attack. Their coordination remained impressive, but there was a new urgency to their movements. The first hints of uncertainty. Captain Park watched for a moment longer, then made her decision. They've had their chance to withdraw, she said quietly. Now they will understand why the Council should have listened to our warnings. She turned to Commander Lee. Prepare main cannon. Target the 3 lead destroyers. Main cannon preparing to fire, Lee confirmed. His fingers danced across the controls, the targeting system locking onto the 3 Azurian ships that led the attack formation. Deep within the Thunderbolt, the ship's true power awakened. The main cannon wasn't simply a weapon. It was an engineering marvel decades ahead of anything the Council races possessed. At its heart lay an artificially contained singularity. A miniature black hole held in perfect balance by fields that defied conventional physics. Cannon charged to 80%, reported the weapons officer. 90%. Full charge achieved. Captain Park took a deep breath. This would change everything. Once the Thunderbolt revealed its true capabilities, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. Fire, she ordered calmly. The ship hummed deeply as energy surged from its core to the front of the vessel. For a brief moment, space itself seemed to bend around the Thunderbolt's bow. Then a brilliant white beam shot forth, so bright that the bridge's view screen automatically darkened to protect the crew's eyes. The beam traveled across space in an instant, striking the first Azurian destroyer. But instead of stopping, it continued through the ship, cutting it in half as if it were made of paper. The beam continued onward, striking the second destroyer with the same devastating effect. Then the third. All 3 massive warships were sliced clean through in less than a second. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the destroyers exploded, their reactor cores breached by the impossible weapon. 3 massive fireballs bloomed in the darkness of space, briefly outshining the local star. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander War stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 3 of his most powerful ships, gone in an instant. Such weapons technology should be impossible for humans. The Council's intelligence reports had assured him that Earth was at least a century behind Azurian military technology. How? He demanded, his voice barely a whisper. Scan that ship again. What are we facing? His officers worked frantically, but their instruments could tell them little. The human vessel was surrounded by technology they didn't understand, using weapons that shouldn't exist. Sir, his tactical officer reported, voice shaking, the human drones are shifting formation. They appear to be charging with energy. On the main screen, Vor watched as the small objects surrounding the Thunderbolt began to glow with an inner light. They moved into new positions, forming what looked almost like the barrel of a massive gun, with the Thunderbolt at its center. Evasive maneuvers. Vor shouted. All ships, break formation. Retreat-to. His orders came too late. The Orion drones pulsed in sequence, each transferring energy to the next in line, amplifying it as it passed. The combined power finally reached the Thunderbolt, which channeled it into another devastating beam. This one swept across space in an arc, cutting through 5 more Azurian vessels as easily as the first shot had destroyed 3. Explosions blossomed across Vor's fleet as ship after ship was destroyed or crippled. What had begun as a simple conquest was rapidly becoming the worst defeat in Azurian military history. Impossible, Vor whispered, watching his mighty armada crumble before a single human warship. They're just humans. But they weren't just humans. That was the mistake the Council had made. The mistake Vor had repeated. Humanity might be young compared to other spacefaring races, but they had evolved on a harsh world, fighting for survival against nature and each other for thousands of years. When they reached the stars and found themselves dismissed and ignored by older species, they hadn't protested. They had prepared. Now, as his fleet burned around him, Supreme Commander Vor finally understood the truth that would soon shock the entire galaxy. Humanity had never revealed their true strength because no one had ever pushed them far enough to make it necessary. Until today, the news traveled faster than any ship could fly. Within hours, every corner of Galactic Council space buzzed with the same story. A single human warship had defeated an entire Azurian battle fleet. 27 advanced warships destroyed or captured by one vessel. The impossible had happened. On the human colony world of Proxima Centauri IV, people emerged from their shelters to see the Thunderbolt floating protectively in orbit. Its dark hull gleamed in the sunlight, showing barely a scratch from the battle. Below it, the massive Azurian command ship Eternal Dominion drifted powerless, now a prisoner rather than a conqueror. Aboard the Thunderbolt, Captain Juan Park stood by the viewport in her ready room. She watched the stars and thought about what would come next. The battle had been necessary but regrettable. Now came the harder part, changing a galaxy's understanding of humanity. Captain, her communications officer called through the intercom. Earth Command is requesting an update. Tell them mission accomplished, Juan replied. The colony is secure. We've captured the Azurian flagship with Supreme Commander Vor and his senior staff aboard. Their ship's database is intact. Yes, Captain. Also, the Council has called an emergency session. They're requesting your presence. Juan nodded to herself. Of course they are. Prepare a secure transmission channel. While her crew handled the technical details, Juan reviewed the information they'd recovered from the Azurian command ship. It was exactly as Earth had suspected, detailed plans for conquering not just human colonies, but eventually other Council worlds. The Azurians had been planning this for decades, hiding their intentions while building their forces. Channel ready, Captain, reported Commander Lee. The Council is waiting. Juan straightened her uniform and stepped onto a small platform in the center of the communications room. Immediately, her image was captured and transmitted across the stars to the Council chambers on Axelnar Prime. The Great Council Chamber on Axelnar Prime was ancient and impressive. Carved from a single massive crystal mountain, its walls sparkled with natural light. The 17 seats of the senior council members formed a semicircle on a raised platform. Below them sat hundreds of representatives from junior member species. Today, the chamber was filled to capacity. Every ambassador, envoy, and observer had rushed to attend this emergency session. The news of the human victory had shocked them all. Order. We will have order, called the council elder, a Xanthian whose gray-green skin showed the wrinkles of 900 years of life. His voice echoed through the vast chamber, gradually silencing the heated debates. This council has convened to address the military action taken by Earth forces against the Azurian hegemony, the elder continued. Such unauthorized military intervention violates our most sacred laws of peaceful coexistence. The Tellurian ambassador, a tall, four-armed being with ruby-colored skin, rose to speak. His species had joined the council only a few centuries before humans, and they had often sympathized with Earth's frustrations. How could we have miscalculated so severely? He demanded, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The humans told us repeatedly what the Azurians were planning. They'd presented evidence at 12 separate council sessions. We dismissed them each time. Murmurs filled the room as many representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Tellurian was speaking an uncomfortable truth. The Doraxian envoy, ancient even by council standards, swiveled his eye stalks dismissively. His species had been among the founders of the council 50,000 years ago, and he rarely bothered to hide his contempt for younger races. They are an infant species, he said, his voice thin but carrying. Barely 1,000 years into space travel. How were we to know they possessed such technology? They concealed their true capabilities from this council, a deception that cannot be tolerated. More murmurs filled the chamber, some agreeing, others protesting. The debate might have continued for hours. Council sessions often did, but a sudden blue light appeared in the center of the room, silencing everyone. A holographic image formed, showing a human female in a dark military uniform. Captain Juan Park stood tall, her expression calm but determined. Beside her stood a bound Azurian officer, Supreme Commander Vor himself, his posture defeated. A hush fell over the chamber. Honorable representatives of the Galactic Council, Captain Park began, her voice clear and steady. For centuries, humanity reached out in friendship, only to be patronized and ignored. We warned you about the Azurian threat, not out of paranoia, but because we recognized the patterns from our own bloody history. She gestured to the captured Azurian commander standing beside her. The evidence of their plans to subjugate not just human colonies, but eventually all Council species is being transmitted to you now. We expect you to review it carefully. The Council elder leaned forward, his ancient eyes narrowing as he studied the human captain. "Is this a threat, Captain?" he asked, his voice quavering slightly. The holographic image of Captain Park did not waver. "No," she replied simply. "This is a reminder. Humanity joined this galactic community in good faith, despite being treated as lesser. We've respected your customs and laws, even when they disadvantaged us, but never mistake our patience for weakness or our restraint for inability." Silence filled the chamber. Every being present understood the implications. Humanity had hidden its true technological advancement from the Council, something no species had successfully done before. The oversight mechanisms, the technology sharing agreements, the mandatory inspections, somehow humans had bypassed them all. "The files we've recovered from the Azurian command ship contain their complete invasion plans," Captain Park continued. "They plan to use human colonies as a testing ground before moving against other lesser Council races. Phase 3 of their plan involved attacks on senior Council worlds, including Axelmar Prime itself." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The idea that the Azurians would dare attack the Council homeworld was unthinkable. "That's impossible," shouted the Diraxian envoy. "Our defenses are impenetrable." Captain Park's expression remained calm. "The same was said about our colony's defenses, yet they fell in ours. The Azurians have been developing weapons specifically designed to overcome Council defense systems." She nodded to someone off-screen, and data began flowing to the Council systems. Detailed plans, weapon schematics, target lists. "We present this evidence not to frighten you, but to protect this galactic community that we still believe in, despite our treatment within it." The Council elder raised a hand, and the data flow paused. "Captain Park, we must verify this information. If what you say is true, it represents the greatest threat to galactic peace in 10,000 years." "Verify all you wish," Park replied, "but do not take too long. The Azurians have allies who may now accelerate their own plans, knowing that ours has been revealed." A new wave of murmurs spread through the chamber. "We request your presence in person, Captain," the elder said. "This matter requires direct discussion." Park nodded once. "I will arrive within 7 standard days. Until then, I suggest you begin reviewing the evidence. The fate of many worlds may depend on your willingness to finally listen." The hologram faded, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. Then, slowly, conversations began again, growing louder by the second. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted overnight, and no one was certain what would happen next. What was certain was that humanity would never again be dismissed as just humans. The species that had been patronized and ignored had revealed itself to be far more dangerous and far more valuable than anyone had imagined. And somewhere in the vastness of space, Captain Juan Park and the Thunderbolt prepared to deliver their message in person. 6 months had passed since the battle at Proxima Centauri IV. Earth had changed in that time. The secret was out. Humanity was far more advanced than they had let the galaxy believe. Now, ships from dozens of worlds visited Earth daily, and the planet had become the center of a diplomatic revolution. Captain Juwan Park stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt, looking out at the blue-green planet below. The ship was docked beside the massive new structure that gleamed in Earth orbit, the Galactic Council Embassy, the first such facility ever built on the homeworld of a young species. Juwan wore her formal uniform today, with the new insignia that marked her promotion. The battle that had changed galactic politics had changed her life as well. She was now Admiral Park, though she still preferred to be called Captain by her crew. "Thinking about the battle?" asked Commander Lee, who had stayed by her side through everything. Juwan nodded. 6 months ago, we were just a nuisance species to most of the Council. Today, they're coming to us. The door to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Minhyuk Song entered, his tall, thin frame draped in the formal blue robes of Earth's diplomatic corps. Behind him came 12 beings of different shapes, sizes, and colors, representatives from the major council species. The bridge crew straightened at their stations. It wasn't every day that such important visitors came aboard. "Admiral Park," Ambassador Song said with a slight bow, "our guests have completed their tour of the embassy and requested specifically to see the Thunderbolt before they depart." Juwan turned and bowed slightly to the delegation. "Welcome aboard. I hope you found your visit to Earth enlightening." The Diraxian representative stepped forward. He looked very different from how Juwan remembered him at the council session 6 months ago. His eye stalks no longer had the haughty tilt that had once displayed his contempt for younger species. Instead, they bent forward in what his kind considered a gesture of respect. "The tour was most illuminating," the Diraxian said, his voice softer than the dismissive tone he had used in the council chamber. "Your technological achievements are humbling." Coming from a Diraxian, whose species had been spacefaring when humans were still using stone tools, this was no small admission. Juwan smiled diplomatically. "We found that necessity often breeds innovation. When you're ignored for long enough, you learn to solve your own problems." The Tellurian ambassador stepped forward, his 4 arms moving in the complex greeting gesture of his people. His ruby skin caught the light as he moved. "The Council has ratified the new Charter of Species Equality," he announced proudly. "No longer will age determine a civilization's standing. Each voice will carry equal weight." This was what Earth had fought for, not dominance, but equality. The right to be heard, to have their concerns taken seriously. It had taken a show of force to make it happen, but the change was real. "And the Azurans?" Juwan asked, her mind turning to the species that had attacked human colonies and set these events in motion. Ambassador Song's expression grew more serious. "Their leadership will stand trial for war crimes. Supreme Commander Vor and his senior officers have already been indicted. Their conquered territories will be restored to their original inhabitants." Juwan nodded, satisfied. Justice would be served, not revenge. That distinction mattered to her. "Would our guests like to see the Orion system?" Commander Lee asked. "We've prepared a demonstration in the simulator room." The delegation murmured with excitement. The Orion drones had become famous throughout the galaxy. What had once been Earth's most closely guarded secret was now its most famous innovation. As the group followed Commander Lee off the bridge, Juwan remained behind. She needed a moment alone. She walked to the observation deck, a small room with a large window that looked out on Earth. From here, she could see the curve of the planet, the swirl of clouds over the Pacific Ocean, the lights of cities on the night side. It was beautiful, worth protecting, worth fighting for. A soft footstep behind her made her turn. Ambassador Song had stayed behind as well. "Quite a view," he said, coming to stand beside her. "The best in the ship," Juwan agreed. "I come here to think." "And what are you thinking about today, Admiral?" Juwan watched as a small transport ship departed from the embassy, heading for the surface. "I'm thinking about balance," she said finally. "For centuries, humans have looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. When we found out we weren't, we were thrilled. Then we learned our place in the galactic order. Newcomers, children, to be patted on the head and ignored. She turned to face the ambassador. Humanity never wanted war. We simply wanted to be heard. Song nodded. And now we are. Every species in the council is listening to what Earth has to say. Not just listening, Juan corrected him. They're coming to us for guidance. The Tellurians have asked for help redesigning their defense network. The Duraxians want to establish a joint research program. Even the Xanthians, who rarely leave their homeworld, have sent students to our universities. Fear can do that, Song observed. Juan shook her head. It's not fear, it's respect. There's a difference. She looked back at Earth, thinking about how quickly things had changed. The Thunderbolt had fired only once in combat, but that single shot had changed the course of galactic history forever. Not through destruction, but by forcing a complacent galaxy to finally acknowledge what humanity had been saying all along. The council meeting next month will be the first under the new charter, Song said. Earth will have a permanent seat at the high table. Who will represent us? Juan asked. Song smiled slightly. They've requested you, Admiral. Juan's eyes widened. Me? I'm not a diplomat. I'm a soldier. You're the one who made them listen, Song replied. They trust your word. And after everything that's happened, perhaps the council needs someone who will speak plainly rather than hide behind diplomatic language. Juan looked out at the stars beyond Earth. Out there were thousands of worlds, billions of beings, all trying to find their place in the vastness of space. Humanity had found its voice at last, and the galaxy had finally stopped to listen. I'll consider it, she said. Below them, Earth continued its eternal spin. In orbit, the new embassy gleamed like a promise of better days ahead. And all around them, the stars watched in silence, perhaps wondering what this young species would do next, now that they had finally been heard. Sometimes, the most important warnings come from the voices we're most reluctant to hear. The galaxy had learned that lesson at last. Humanity would make sure they didn't forget it.